I called you the other day and I said, hey, like, we're obviously pro-choice. This is where we're going to come from. And we just kind of want to talk about everything, like in the realm of abortion, is weird to say, in the realm of abortion, just kind of like a woman's perspective, because Hyland and I, we're just two dudes, kind of like our political leaders are just a bunch of dudes making laws for the
Yeah.
opposite sex. So I think we wanted to just kind of bring you on as like a balance, um, just to all perspectives.
What the fuck do we know?
Well, thank you.
Oh,
I appreciate that I was the person that came to your brain when you thought about who are we going to talk to about this. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you're the first and only woman to ever reach out to us, other than Hyland's mother,
shut up, ma.
about yeah, about coming on the podcast.
well, honestly, like you and I have been friends for a really long time, and if I'm
Mm.
going to do a podcast with anybody, it's going to be you. It's not going to be like some rando.
This is so touching.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
Well,
stop.
Highland, you're kind of a rando,
Yeah,
so
I know. I know.
but yeah, and we had talked about it briefly like when I was streaming, and I think that was before the channel even got started though. I think it was like
Mhm.
in just in the works. Um yeah, and so if I'm gonna be on anybody's podcast, it's gonna be Dudes Connect.
Oh, stop. And we kind of like that term too, because it's like everybody, it's like from Good Burger when Ed is like, he's a dude, she's a dude, like everybody's a fucking dude.
When
I
I
get.
texted you about it, that's what I said.
Yeah, you totally did.
Hmm.
And Highland and I stream too. Or we were a lot more into it
Active.
from before. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a lot more active. And Highland, I don't know about you or Noe about you, but like when I stream, I've had people that came in and were like, "Hey, how do you feel about the LGBTQ plus and all the other
Hmm.
pronouns that go with it? How do you feel about it?" And I was like, "Oh, I might call you dude." And more times than not, they always were to say like, "Dude's kind of just a universal term."
Yeah.
You
I think
know?
I overused guys a lot. Like when I was talking to people, I would reference like, "Oh, you guys," or and not so much in the stream, but I remember like when I was serving tables at restaurants, older people would get so upset about me generalizing like, guys all the time, or like
Right.
um I ran into it a couple times on stream though, like where people were like, "I'm a lady," or "I'm a man," like, I don't know. Um I feel like it's one of those things that, like, especially now because it is such a common topic, or even like, you don't want to be wrong with somebody's pronouns, that you have to be careful. But like for me specifically, when I'm streaming, it's not like I'm just like when I say guys, I'm not like addressing the male population. I'm
Right.
literally just I want to have fun with everybody. There, I don't want to not include anybody.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's where like especially when we're live streaming, it gets a little bit touchy because you want to respect everybody. You want everybody to feel included, but you also want to be you. Like,
Mhm.
you don't want to change yourself just because. So.
Definitely. Highland, when I was in your mom's stream the other day, she had referred to her chat saying guys multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
and she outwardly said like, "Oh, I need to work on that. I should just start saying folks." And it had me thinking, because I say guys
Yeah.
all the time in it. But if I'm not saying guys, I'm just saying dudes in general. So everybody in my chat. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like guys, in my opinion, I feel like guys is real equal to dudes. Just like if we can make, and this is gonna make me sound so fucking conservative, and people are gonna jump on me. But if we can make a bunch of new pronouns that I respect, if somebody comes up to me and they
Of
say they're
course.
they, I respect that, and I'll do my best to use that pronoun. So I'm changing guys from the male population, or referring to us males, or those who identify as males. Guys is now equivalent to dudes. I'm calling it. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna call it now.
I've called so many females and just people in general dudes.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Okay.
Even
dudes.
my girlfriend, I'm like, hey, dude. It's kind of like, fuck.
So, do you guys remember? I don't know if this was a thing for you guys, but like when I was little, I think in elementary school is when I started maybe saying dudes. My mom didn't really like when I would say dudes. I don't know if it's like the older generation or what, but she would get mad like that I was addressing people as dude. And one of my friends back then, it was like the joke, like, "Oh, do you know what a dude is? It's an elephant's butt hair." Do you remember that? Did that ever happen to you guys? No.
An
Okay, it's
elephant's
just me.
butt hair?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Never heard that.
Like, okay, did you ever hear like a dork? Like what the
Yeah.
definition? Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
that's what it would be have been equivalent to is like a dude was a elephant's butt hair. And I had came home and I told her that one day, like, just sharing things with my mom about things that happened or at school. And she like got so upset and she's like, that is exactly why you shouldn't be using that term. Like got so upset. And James, you know my mom. Like so
Yeah.
like just imagine that happening. And that got me to not say dude for a little bit, but it was mostly because I was gonna get in trouble for it.
Yeah, Highland, I'm actually curious about you. Does your mom get mad when you call her dude, or did she when you were
No,
younger?
she never gave a shit. Like I've said some weird shit to my parents and they just don't care. Like they just go with it or they call me it back. Like there's never been like
Nice.
a rule of like, oh, you can't say this. Like even swearing from a young age. They're like, okay, well just don't like swear in public at people. Or don't
Bro,
call this person a weird whatever name you just called me. I'm like, okay.
if I'm calling my parents dude or I'm swearing in front of them, bro, I'm getting the chancla, bro.
Yeah.
From across the house. That thing is gonna boomerang at me,
They
I'm telling
snipe.
you. Yeah, oh yeah.
Mom's
Oh
got
yeah.
aim.
She does. Let's do this real quick, guys. Welcome back. This is part two to the first part of the podcast that we did a week or two ago. I don't know when we'll post this, but this is definitely going to be the follow up to that. We have the beautiful Noelani with us, and we asked her to come on. You know, she reached out to me a few weeks ago or a couple weeks back and asked me if she could be on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, yeah. We just got to find something to talk about, and fortunately for Texas writing new legislation, unfortunately, we had asked her to bring on because Highland and I we're just a couple of guys, we're a couple of males, and we're talking about abortion, and abortion doesn't affect us
To the
to the
same point.
way exactly. Thank you, Island. And we thought, why not bring on a lady, a woman, a young woman who is now living in this weird fucking time that we're living in, and get her opinion on just about everything. So if you're wondering who we've been talking to for the last 10 minutes, this is this is who we're talking to this week. So Noe, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that like we found a topic. I know we were bouncing around like a couple of ideas. Like you said, sadly, it's this topic, but I'm just glad to be on here, not necessarily like representing women, but just giving perspective on how I personally feel being a woman. So,
Mhm. Do you feel like you're political now? Because you and I were pretty much from the same generation.
yeah. Mhm.
And I feel like ever since we were younger to just now, and because of the rise and the momentum of social media, I think our generation and the generations after us are have gotten so political. Do you feel that you've been kind of following just the state of politics up until today, even?
Well, I feel like in high school, it wasn't that my high school was like politically charged, but they definitely like, how you had economics and they're trying to teach you everything that you need to know. We had like fake debates. We actually Obama was running for president that year, and we had like the whole voting. You go into the like little poll box and cast your vote, and so I think from that point on is when I was like really aware of politics, but I didn't quite get into it until the last couple of years, like you're saying, because of how present it is on social media, how accessible it is now. I think that's super common for our generation is like I I talk about this all the time. Um, the generation before us, they didn't have access to news as easily as we do now. And
Right.
so they had to read it in the newspaper, or even like just, 10 years back, it was all TV. Like you had to watch it on the morning news to be aware of it. And now, the second that it happens, it's on Twitter, it's on, Facebook, it's everywhere. And so we get live access to everything, which definitely has its benefits, but also impacts us like negatively too, I think, which is a whole different subject. But I think that I've become a lot more political now than I have been before. Um, I wouldn't say that like I feel like I do a pretty good job of staying where I need to be. Like I don't overdo it and talk about things that don't pertain to me, or things that like aren't, don't get applied to me. I definitely do my part in voting. Like California, we have all these things that we have to vote on all the time. I'm sure every other state is the same way, but like currently the Gavin Newsom thing is going on. And so I definitely take part in things that apply to me, and I'm aware of those. But I will say that I don't know everything that goes on, even with all the access that we get. I think
What?
that it's very important for people to like not stay in your lane. That sounds super crazy, but like, don't get into business that doesn't pertain to you.
Wait. So you're saying that a bunch of women shouldn't get together and make legislation that dictate what men do with their body?
Um,
It's a really
okay.
it's not like it's you don't have to answer. It's not
Yeah,
a real
well, no, you
question.
made it like super broad, but really, like, if it was pertaining to if you guys all needed to like get circumcised, or like get a little snip snip, like, no, I don't think that I should take part in that, unless it has to do with something that then impacts me, right? So like
Mhm.
maybe talking about population control or like things like that. But even then, like, I don't know, I'll talk about it more when we get into other topics, but I think that there's never a black and white. Like, I there are so many different gray areas, and we just all have to be really aware of that.
I think so too. Highland, this is what I was saying last week, bro. It's hard
Yeah.
for me to just be one way or the other, which is why I like tote the middle line,
Yeah,
Like I
no,
don't want
that's
to have,
fair.
you know what I mean? Like I don't want to pay a shit ton in taxes that where I'm not seeing, where they're going,
Right.
but I also don't mind a percentage of my tax money going into like the orphan system or the adoption agencies that, get government funding or
Well, because
whatever.
you get
Like
to
it's
see where it
really
goes.
right, exactly. Well, that and I think we have the biggest military. Like, I don't think our taxes need to keep funding the
No,
military.
it's not.
Although, again, toting the middle line, I support the military. Yeah, it's weird. Highland and I were getting into last week. What was something that we were talking about hate speech and what it would be like because the Westboro Baptist Church, right? Maybe not personally, but
Yes.
I'm sure you've heard of them. And one of the things they do is they protest a fallen soldier who is gay. They protest their funeral. And I was saying that, because of the laws and the way that our rights are built in this country, if you were to take one of these rights away, well, who's to say that they're not going to take more than that away? And Highland, what were you saying?
I was saying that it really depends what they're taking away. Because I don't think they should have the right to protest a funeral for one. I think it's
Right.
insanely disrespectful. I think everyone has the right to a proper death and to be
Yeah, totally
respected.
agree.
Mhm.
And I don't think they have the right to protest anyone's sexuality. I think that needs to be. I think there needs to be a law in place where they're not allowed to do that because their sexuality doesn't affect them at all or pertain to them at all. So I think it would just make it a safer place for people if that right to protest someone's sexuality was taken away, just because you don't agree with it. So that was
Yeah.
kind of my point of it.
When you guys were talking about this, was this just specifically that protest, or were you guys like broadening it, or was, I guess because I missed the context,
Right,
so.
right, right. I think it was broad and that specific. I hadn't slept for 30 hours, so I actually don't remember a lot of
Oh my
what they fucking
God.
said.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll help recap. Obviously, we were talking about abortion and Texas making abortion illegal
Okay.
after the 6-week period, and then we had started getting into just rights being taken away in general. So if
Hmm.
a
Right.
woman, is we're these political leaders are basically telling these women what they can and cannot do in Texas specifically, because I believe this is the first legislation written like that in the United States. And well, I mean, who's to say that they don't put greater? I mean, if they've already reached a little bit like this far, who's to say they don't go farther and take away the first 6 weeks and just say abortion is
Period.
completely gone? And
They
that's
might
what I
they
think.
might as well do that though with the 6 week law. Like that's what it's there for. Because as we talked about, how the fuck do you know you're pregnant in the first 6 weeks? Because of all the
Yeah.
things that can happen. Like there's
Hmm.
basically no signs
Yeah.
in those first
Most
6 weeks.
women don't even realize it until they're about like 8 weeks, from what I understand, even longer. I've never experienced that myself, but 6 weeks for me, that's the thing for me about this entire thing, is that like how do we determine 6 weeks? Like I know that it's like when a heartbeat can be detected and when like neurons start, firing, but there are so many different situations in which there are gray areas. So how do we decide that 6 weeks? I feel like if something so solid is put into place, there definitely has to be um, situations in which we take a second look. I briefly talked to you about this, James, but I stand pretty much like, I definitely am in support of life, people, humans, right? But I think that as a woman, but just as anybody, I think that we should have the right to make our own decisions about our own body, the same way that we get to choose if we're, drinking alcohol. And obviously, none of these things are in the same, you can't compare apples to oranges, but like, sorry, apples, but like tattoos, drinking,
Mhm.
um, all of those things that we're able to decide for ourselves. I feel like that's something, abortion is definitely something that we should be able to decide for on our own. Um, yeah.
It made me think of just like a question right now. When you said drinking, well, isn't it child abuse for a pregnant woman to drink alcohol? Like, obviously, there's though, I don't know if I want to call it a myth exactly, but there are people who say that, a glass of wine while you're pregnant is okay, right?
Hmm.
But what
Yeah.
about those women who, let's say it's within, let's say it's,
Overindulge.
yeah, they overindulge, and it's maybe right around between the 5th and like 8-week mark, and they're seeing their doctor in such a weird case, and the doctor knows they've been drinking a ton, but then they find out that they're pregnant. I'm pretty sure that falls under child abuse, even though there is technically no child in the womb at that time.
I think it
So
depends what country. Because in Canada, it's not considered a child until it basically comes out of the
Hmm.
woman. So
right.
it
Yeah.
the law is a little bit different here. I think with that one, I don't think they can consider it child abuse because of they don't consider it fully a child until it's born, basically.
I always love the argument too, where it's like, well, there's a child in the womb, and they can't choose whether or not they want to be aborted or not.
Yeah.
And I find it funny because it's like, okay, well, after the child's born, that child can still not make a decision,
Hmm.
Right.
you
Well,
For a
know?
very
actually,
long time, actually.
that's a question I
Yeah,
have for
for
like
a
maybe
very
both of
long time.
you. Is like we call it life, like you call having a child life, right? But when
Mhm,
we and like how life is like beautiful and amazing and mysterious, but
mhm.
when when we talk about life, it's like what life do you want to choose? Somebody says, "Oh, what life do you want to choose? What life are you working for? Like what life do you want to have?" I don't think being born is just life because you just don't choose that. Like you're being born, you have no choice over that. It's like what happens after, that's life. You kind
So
of
like your experiences.
well, yeah, your experiences and like where you're gonna go and like what happens and whatnot. So that's why it kind of like do you consider just being born life? Like, is that all life is? That's kind of what I'm asking, because it's a big word for it's a huge meaning, covers
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
mean, I can definitely like argue both sides. I feel like experiences tie into who you are and your life in general, but like just to go back on what you said, you had mentioned like is being born considered being like, you know, you coming to life, but um like that the first thing that clicks in my head is what about like babies who are like premature or
Right.
emergency C-sections, all of those things, right? I guess they're still being born, but in that sense, like are we now controlling their life? Are we controlling when they come into this world? Like, um, but life in general, I think just back on what you said is just such a huge word. Like it's so hard to define, which is why things like new law regulating it, like it's not black or white. And I keep
No.
saying that, but it's because it's true. Like there is no black or white, right or wrong answer for this. There are so many situations in which you have to consider. When you guys were talking, I looked away for a minute. I was looking up something because I remember a couple years back, and I didn't find it. Maybe if I look a little bit more, I heard about a woman who was killed and she was pregnant, and obviously the baby died as well. And I wanted to find out if that person got charged for two murders or for just one, because that pertains to life as well. I'm not really sure how far along she was, but that could be another example of like, when are we considering it life, you know?
Right.
Um, I didn't find much on it, but
I've
if
heard
I
of
do,
things like
I'll
that.
circle back.
I've heard of
Yeah.
things like people getting charged for a double murder because of killing a
Hmm.
pregnant woman so far along.
Yeah. And then just to go back on what you said, James, you were talking about like overindulging in alcohol, right? So like one of the things that I think of when it comes to like telling somebody that they can't have an abortion in situations in which like somebody has overindulged in alcoholism, right? We know for a fact that that leads to birth issues, not even just issues with the birth process, but the child's like ability to even make neuron connections, right, when they get older.
The
Mhm.
fetal
And
alcohol
so
syndrome.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so in situations like that, like that's kind of where I was saying I think that there has to be situational um I don't know, loopholes or like understanding somebody's situation before you determine no, we can't do this after this time. Like it's such a solid law. It's literally a law. You're putting it into place, right? So like there has to be situations in which that doesn't apply anymore. So like if we're talking about quality of life now, like now we're affecting the quality of life of that child when they are born. We are asking somebody to, against whatever they feel, bring a child into the world knowing that there might be physical, mental effects that change their life dramatically, you know?
Mhm.
So that's something to consider too when we're talking about if abortion should be legal or not.
Yeah. I also had a second question. With so like when I hear the word, I had this conversation with my mom actually yesterday, and like when I hear the word pro life,
Hmm.
like my mom kind of said, I don't call it that because are they really pro life? Like they don't give a shit about the kid,
Hmm.
when it has, so it's like anti women's rights. And I much more agree with that statement
Yeah,
instead of calling it pro life. And would you agree with
I
that?
totally agree. No,
Okay.
I agree because one of the things that like I think should have happened if they were going to be putting this in place is kind of trying to figure out what ways they were going to help people that they're forcing in, like you're forcing somebody's hand in the decision to carry a child and give birth. Like what are you going to do to aid them if they're not ready for this, if they don't want this? You know, this also is a huge topic, but essentially they're not stopping, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before too. They're not stopping abortions from happening. They're stopping safe abortions from
Yeah.
happening. Like people are still going to go out and do it because they feel like they don't have another choice. So maybe they wouldn't do that if you were going to support them along the way or even post birth, you know?
Right. Well, there's statistics to show that like more sexual education leads to less abortions, like in school and whatnot, and teaching
Hmm.
safe sex and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it just seems like that group of people don't want to take the necessary route, the safer route, to and don't see that like if you take these steps and implement these steps, there are less abortion. They just want
Exactly.
their
Hmm.
way, which is fucking mind blowing.
No, I totally agree. Like, if you're going to make something so solidified, you have to think about the repercussions for those types of things. And I think that that's the biggest issue here is that they're not really thinking it through. They're just saying, we think it's wrong. Let's move on.
Right, right. And do you know anybody who is also a female and is anti women's rights? I guess we'll call it now.
Honestly, well, first of all, let me just, I don't have a lot of friends that are girls.
Okay.
I just naturally gravitate towards men, I guess, and in friendships, but it's because it's not that I'm not a girl's. Like, I'll go out, dress up with my girls, go to a club, whatever, like, all that kind of stuff. But I don't have a huge array of friends that are girls. Now, the close friends group that I do have of girls, um, I've never ran into one who has blatantly said that. Now, again, this is like a newer, fresher topic, right? Because we had different, like, up till a month ago, this was not even something that was readily discussed. But I would say for the most part, all of my friends who are also women believe that they should have the right to do. Actually, several of my friends have had the opportunity, or not opportunity, but like have had practice their that right to be able to do that.
Okay. No, that's awesome, as they should. I
Yeah.
shouldn't
I
say
was,
that that's awesome, but I should like as they should. Sorry, it's
oh,
not.
Yeah.
oh yeah, is that
Yeah,
awesome, Island?
yeah.
Is that
That was
awesome?
fucking very poor wording, but like that is
Well,
great that they
that's
were able
I
to do
kind of use
so.
bad wording too, so that's why I went back on it. Is
Yeah,
like it's not an opportunity, it's
it's the
Well,
right
a
to do
hey,
right.
so.
if we get burned in the comments, at least we're all gonna get burned together.
No,
Exactly.
you stayed quiet, so
No, no, no. I mean, it's weird because yeah, I mean, the conservatives are gonna attack, you and Highland probably over me, but then unfortunately, I feel like the people who lean more liberal are gonna start attacking me because they're gonna think that I sound conservative. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, and despite how we all feel about Joe Rogan, he gets attacked by both sides. But it's funny is when you actually hear him out and listen to an entire episode, he's a gun-toting person, sure. I love that's how we describe conservatives most of the time, but he is that guy. But at the same time, he doesn't care if you're trans. I mean, he's for LGBTQ rights plus rights. And yeah, if I feel like I'd get attacked by both sides. At least you guys are getting one side. I'm gonna get hit by both.
I think it's. I
Yeah,
mean, I think you'll always get hit by both, though. Like, there's always like a super far leftist, like to the point of like, well,
right,
fuck, you use this word wrong, or maybe you used this pronoun wrong, and it's like, well, shit, I didn't mean to. Like, if I had
right.
known or something, and they can attack you for that. And then there's always the super far rightists that are always like, well, fuck you. Like, women shouldn't have control of their body. Go fuck yourself. Like, there's always gonna be both sides coming after you. Like, there's rarely a middle ground in politics. Like
Right.
you're always gonna have both parties or multiple parties coming at you from fucking left, right wing. It doesn't matter.
well, that's one of those. Remember, like a while ago, I referenced like there are pros and cons to having access to everything all the time. That's kind of one of those things where like everybody has access to you, so you hear everybody's opinion, even if you don't necessarily like are ask if you're not asking for it.
That's just
Hmm.
how
Um,
today's society is. You got to be prepared for it. You got to have pretty tough skin nowadays if you
yeah,
want to say something on the internet.
yeah, like roast me if you'd like. No, actually, don't cut that out. I don't want you to roast me, but
I'm
I
too.
feel like that.
I'm
I feel like
sensitive.
what
I
I'm
don't want it.
saying. I know, right? I feel like what I'm saying is like, my own opinion. And if you
Right.
don't think that, then you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to watch me. But I think it's important that we take into consideration other people's feelings. And if I could say anything about like the last handful of years pertaining to all types of social media, politics, It's that we don't take other people's feelings into consideration. We're always worried about how we're going to feel from somebody else impacting it, but we never worry about somebody else and how we're making them feel at the end of the day. And especially now, like social media, just, comments, trolls, all of that kind of stuff. Like, the consideration, or the lack of consideration that I most commonly see now, like, just kind of makes me sad. I was like brought up in like well, I know for a fact that the way that my parents brought me up, they had me around adults all the time, and one of the biggest things was like respect your elders, talk to them. So for majority of my life I was around adults, and I carried myself like, I had to carry myself very well and be careful what I said and all of these things. And um that's kind of turned into a personality trait of mine, is that I'm always going to be respectful of everybody around me. My intent is never to hurt anybody. But I see a huge lack in, consideration coming from other people, and that disappoints me.
Yeah, I think that stems from just not wanting to be wrong. Like we talked about this actually on the last episode, and like, we want people, if they have conflicting views, to comment. And
Mhm.
and that's okay, but just be respectful about it. Like bring actual
Exactly.
points to the argument. And like, my dad said something to me like 3 years ago that kind of like stuck with me, was like, as soon as you start insulting someone, you've lost the argument. You have no more knowledge, or you have no more points to like bring to the argument. You've already
Hmm.
lost. And sure, it's not about winning or losing in situations of opinions, but I think having a great conversation with somebody who has opposite opinions, it's so important because you can learn
Yeah,
from them still. I think people are also scared of like, well, fuck, maybe I am wrong. It's a hard pill to swallow. Like even like I'm only 21, so like kind of
woo,
just getting
too
past that
young.
stubborn age of like,
Hmm.
oh fuck, I'm wrong. Like shit, okay, I guess I am
Just
wrong. I gotta
accepting it.
admit it.
Take my L on this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, like and so like I think people got to be a lot more adaptive, especially now of like there's new information coming out all the time, and we got to respect this new information, especially with like pronouns. And it's a, it's such an easy adaptation to just, you're making someone's day, like by just
Yeah.
respecting what they would like to be called. And if you can't change your vocabulary to shit you already know, like he slash her, they slash them, we use these words all the time.
Those are like sight words that you learn like in first grade.
Exactly, fucking exactly. So if you can't like adjust your vocab a little bit, then like come on, it's the ignorance. So you definitely, it's a great point to bring up that we need to be more, I guess, collaborative in how we talk to each other, and maybe a little bit
Yeah,
more empathetic. And that kind of goes with like the women's, like it ties into perfectly the women, like how women
exactly.
feel. Like no, these old white dudes making these laws, they don't give a fuck. They're not. They don't see how women may feel about this. It's
Yeah, no.
it's crazy.
I kind of wanted to go back as you guys were talking about sexual education, and I think that just as men, right? If we go and have a one night stand with a lady and she gets pregnant, and the girl's like, "Hey, I don't want this kid. Like we were just having a little fling and a little fun," and then on the opposite end, the guy's like, "Okay, well, I want to keep it." I think it's weird because there's a lot of people that want to argue that, well, it's a two-person job. It's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
is, but if you're just gonna go have a fling with a girl, or she's gonna have a fling with you rather, right? Um, y you need to this goes with sexual education and the fact that you need to be prepared. So it's not always up to the women to take birth control or these, contraceptive pills or whatever. Um, but also men needing to be more taking more accountability in bringing condoms or spermicidal lube, it's such a funny word to say. Sorry. That's 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 the little kid in me. But no, it's true. And I wanted to touch on it because I think we need to push sexual education a lot more. Island and I don't think it was in the podcast the part one episode that we recorded, but it was part of a different one to where we highly sexualize ourselves just as a people in the US, so I guess in the world, so much, but we want to keep sex so quiet at the same time. And it's so weird how we do that because we're so scared to talk about it, but we'll flaunt our stuff, on big ass billboards in fucking Central Park or, in Times Square like it's nothing and like we're okay with that. So it's so weird and I feel like it's so contradicting, when it comes to one side or the other. It's just like let fucking people do what they want. You're gonna go have a fling, go do it, but prepare yourself. How would you feel if you were dating a guy, Noe, and you guys were in a long relationship? And you know what? Let me back up. I had said this in the part one episode, but I was telling Highland about the situation that I had where I was great friends with this girl, and we kind of had a little thing for each other, but we weren't official. We weren't officially dating, nothing, but we had
Mm-hmm.
a high respect for each other, and we got ourselves into a situation to where she had to make that decision. And I guess I'm kind of just trying to paint the picture to any other guys out there that I do have to put my pride down and my beliefs and respecting women's body that she had to make a decision that was hard for her, and it was an abortion and yeah, it was a really weird feeling, as a guy. I was like, like, yo, like that is my kid. Like that was my initial thought. Like, hey, that's possibly potentially my kid in there, or what can be my kid. And, I backed up and I was just like, all right, well, I'm just going to support you in whatever decision you want to make because like I don't have anything in me that can reproduce. I think that'd be a little weird. That's not how, that's not how, we evolved, but I respected her and basically I just want you to praise me for respecting her body.
That's all you can do.
No.
Oh,
But no, but it's serious. I mean, I think we have a high population of guys that listen, men, people that identify themselves as male that listen to this podcast. And, if I were to say anything to them, it's respect her, respect her decision
yeah.
and support her, and we still have a great relationship up until this point. And, had it gone the other way, I could have really fucking burned it to the ground.
Well, I am gonna go ahead and applaud you because that in itself, I know that you didn't want to take like you were joking about it, but really, you giving her control, I respect that completely because ultimately, like, yeah, you did take part in it and you did experience it too. Like if anything, this also applies to you, right? Because
Right.
you also experienced it. But I think that I kind of want to like skip back to what you
That's
said
fine.
and said like, oh, if you were dating somebody like so if I put myself in that same position, I definitely would want to have the I would want to have control of it because well, for one thing, I'm the one that's going to be going through it. It's going to be my body, my mental health. Not that your mental health and your body isn't going to also be affected because it is. But I'm going to take
The brunt of the
the
force.
brunt of it. Yeah, exactly. And so um I think leaving it up to a woman even when you partook in it is like an awesome thing. I don't think that I would be able to date somebody like long term if we couldn't see eye to eye in that same thing because accidents happen all the time. A lot of pregnancies happen when there is birth control in place. And so it can happen to anybody.
And that's why it's completely false when people say opposites attract. that that
Exactly.
that is not a real thing. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. Well, I
I,
mean,
I think in some cases it's cute, but regardless, what
yeah.
were you saying, Alan?
Well, to tie into like also the whole sexual education, like men can get reversible vasectomies. So, like, sure, it's painful for a bit, but abortion is also, I think, more painful. I'm gonna go out on a fucking limb, like
Oh yeah.
physically, mentally, everything else. So, like,
From what I physically saw with my partner, it's like an extreme pain.
yeah.
Oh,
So we as men who impregnate the woman and such because she didn't magically get a baby out of fucking air, like
That would be
so
Mary Magdalene.
yeah, exactly. So like we can get irreversible vasectomies, and then when we find that person that we want to have a child with at the right time, you can reverse that process. Whereas women, if they tie their tubes, that's it. Like you
yeah.
you
I
can't
think
really
there's
have children after that.
Yeah, I think that there's like the stigma around vasectomies because for a long time I don't think that it was reversible.
No.
Um, and so I think the it hasn't become something that is common.
Right.
Um, and so the first thing that comes to people's mind when they think vasectomy is like, I can no longer produce seed, right?
Yeah, and it almost feels emasculating to them. And I think men are
Exactly.
like a
Yes.
bunch of little piss babies. And they're like, oh, well, you're taking my rights away. Oh, that's fucking crazy. That's crazy, dude. Like, what about these
Yes.
women? Like, you're not taking your right away. Or male birth control. There was actually a study and test with male birth control. All the men
Hmm.
complained there was no side effects other than cramps and headaches. What do you think women go through when they take birth control, you fucking piss baby? Like,
So I've actually been on birth control for a really long time. And at this point, like I don't know if what I go through is part of who I am and like my personality, or if it's a side effect from birth control. Like from what I understand, they are all side effects from birth control. But I've just become like I've accepted it as what my body does and who I am. I no longer think of it as like, damn, that birth control really got me messed up.
yeah, you're accustomed to it.
Exactly, but it's because I am like if I can suck it up and be on birth control for X amount of years, I think that men are equally like why can't you do it? And it's funny
Exactly.
that you say that the side effects are just like headaches and cramps because
Welcome to every month, man. Like, what are you complaining about? Like,
And I think, well,
yeah.
and I think there's, going to the vasectomy, a lot of people are like, oh, there's going to be a lot of testosterone loss and everything. And it's like, yeah, it sounds like it would happen, but it doesn't, according to vasectomy.org down in Australia, they're saying that, simply redirecting your sperm and not completely removing your testicles, your testosterone levels will remain unchanged. So, and I'm fucking 31. Like, I don't for the longest time I knew I didn't want to have kids and I still don't. Like, I think that I will take this in a deep consideration if I want to, remain and do the things that I want to do to this day. If I want to go have a little fling and she's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant." It's like, "Yeah, bitch, I got you. I'm vasectomized."
I'm grinding Valorant. Don't text me.
Yeah, right.
Um
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so you mentioned not wanting to have kids. So you and I are just a couple years apart.
Yep.
So I'm 29 and I always told my mom like, "Oh, I'm never having kids," and she was like crying all the time, like, "Oh, I need grandchildren."
Mhm.
Um, at my age now, I'm not against having children. I definitely think that children are in my future, but the fact that I got to choose when I had children, I've never been in a situation in which I needed to take advantage of my right to have an abortion. But if I was put in that position, I definitely would have practiced it. And that's just something that I can say, like, not necessarily like actually proudly. I can proudly say that if I was put in that position, I would definitely have, chosen to practice my right. I plan on having kids. I just don't plan on having them anytime soon.
Right. I
That's
feel like a lot of
responsible.
it is responsible, and I feel like a lot of people who are anti-choice, rather than pro-life, and that's a callback to your
Mhm.
mother, Highland.
Shut up, mom.
Uh, they feel like people who are practicing, the right to be able to get an abortion, like I feel like they think that we are celebrating, or people who are pro-choice are celebrating this thing. Like, no, this is a very hard choice.
Oh
This
yeah,
isn't something that we're parading around and waving. We might wave around, and in celebrate the fact that we can do this, but
but
we're
not
not
that we
actually
do.
exactly. We're not celebrating the fact that we do or that women do. And yeah, I think that's bold of you to say, because for you to say that you're proud to say that you would have practiced that. I think that's real bold, and I really respect that, because it's a really weird statement to hear right off the cuff, but when you actually ingest it, it's very chewable.
Yeah, you should
I
be. You
think,
should be proud that you
well, I
are
think
able
one
to
of the
practice
things
that.
that makes me able to say that is because I've never had to do it, but there is like stigmatism and shame that is associated with it.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that one of the things that isn't brought up very often is the fact that it's not easy for women. If I pull up just the immediate complications that can come from it, there's like a whole list of it. Damage to the womb, death, um, an incomplete abortion where you have to come back and do it again. Like there's a huge
Jesus.
list of things that um, can happen to you. And I think that it's not right for me to say that the people that put the law in place think this, but it almost seems to me like wipe your hands clean, like it gets done and it's like, oh, they're done. Nothing else comes from it when they suffer from huge emotional like issues after physical issues, like all these things come from it. It's not as simple as, oh, we're just done. Like
Yeah.
it's done.
That's just on the medical side too. Like that's medically done with medical tools. That's
Yeah,
not even now women have to resort to actually like really damaging themselves by doing
exactly.
unethical ways of abortion basically. Oh,
Like they tell you the risks when you go into it. And one of those risks is that you won't be able to have kids in the future, like at all, because something could go awry. And so when women make the decision too, it's not like it's an easy peasy decision for them. Like they really are thinking about how it's going to affect them long term. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it's not such an easy decision like everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but like it comes off to be sometimes, especially people who are against it.
right, right. And that kind of sways to like we were talking about in the last episode, protesters and how they have the right to protest right outside of an abortion clinic and say, this is murder, you're a murderer, and shame you for it even more. And that can even deter you from getting an abortion. And that kind of goes to where, like, I think that should be highly fucking illegal because how does that affect them? I think it'd be
Yeah.
highly illegal to be deterring someone from practicing their right.
I
Like,
think like
that's
think about
unfair.
how many times that situation has been referenced in like movies or memes or anything, like walking into an abortion clinic and seeing people outside that are like, your baby has fingernails and
That's right at my
loves
hospital
you.
every day. Every day at the hospital. They are always protesting.
Oh,
It,
really? Over there?
oh God, yeah. Where I live
I,
in Kelowna, yeah, it's a very conservative
What
city.
what state do you live in?
I live in
I didn't.
Canada,
Oh, oh, okay.
in British Columbia.
in British Columbia.
I know a Canadian.
Yeah, we're just out and about, eh? Right in our
Oh
moosey.
no, don't do it to her, bro.
Oh, what did I get myself into?
A
Little bit of
pretty damn
Canada.
good episode, I
Yeah,
think.
no doubt. I think it's been really great. It's been
It's
really
been
great.
fucking.
And thank you so much for sharing like your opinion and how you feel and what you stand on, because it takes a lot to be put on camera and be put on the internet to share your opinion. So it's really awesome. Thank you.
Everybody's gonna see, you
Hell
know.
yeah.
But I think that like that is part of my personality is that like if you go on social media and stuff, I don't put everything out there, but if you know me in person, I generally like give you everything. Respectfully, I can talk about whatever with you, and as long as, like, going back on what I said earlier, as long as that we can have a respectful conversation, I'm down to talk about whatever and my opinion on whatever, as long as like that other person who's receiving my opinion is not going to get like hostile with me just because that's how I feel about something.
I can see how you and
I.
James are friends because
Mhm.
James is the exact same way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, when we got done with with part one, when we were recording part one, to the abortion series, right?
Yeah.
Dun, dun. I was like, yeah, I think this needs to be. I mean, if you would go back and listen to the podcast, I was saying that I think this needs to be into like maybe a 2 or 3 part episode. Because like I was telling you at the beginning, I think we need to get a woman's perspective, I think, because we're just a couple of fucking weird dudes, guys, like actual males that
Yeah.
are sitting here talking, and I don't want that. I don't want it to just continue to where just like the political leaders again are a bunch of men mostly,
Yeah.
making this decision. Like, unfortunately, you're gonna get the one in there that's gonna vote as well, in Congress and in the Senate, but every once in a while you get that woman, but most of the time it's a girl, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like Congress because I think that they fuck up way too much, and this is obviously one of them.
Yeah.
I
I
Well, you guys go ahead.
go- oh. Okay, I was gonna say I'm curious to know, like, if they took an anonymous survey, how many of those people that sat and voted um, are affected without even knowing by abortions. Like how many of their wives or nieces or daughters have had to face that. Just out of curiosity, that's something that my brain goes to. So,
That's a great question.
It is.
And we'll also and like, what do you do? Because I actually heard somebody talking about this. What do you do when you're 12 and incest is illegal and rape is, like, well, now it's almost less illegal than abortion in Texas for whatever fucking reason. But what do you do when a 12-year-old is raped?
mhm.
Or even raped by her uncle. Like, it's a fucked up situation, and sure, it could be rare, but what do you do at that point? Like, you can die giving birth when you're 12 because your body's not developed.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have seen, but like on Instagram, there's like this huge set of, I don't even know if they're considered memes at this point, but like informational squares on Instagram that are like, I am thinking about Tatiana and how she, and then giving situations in which abortion would be right in that situation, right? Or what they would consider right. And most commonly, like rape is the biggest issue that's brought up because the woman the woman didn't have consensual sex. It's not like it was in their plan, like, oh, I'm thinking about this and yeah, it's possible. Like that's not how it went for them. And I think rape, and like just specifically, not only does it cause so much trauma right then and there, but then now we're causing more drama and like emotional distraught, all those things that just come along with it that people don't think about
It's
like
life
later
changing.
on. Now you're carrying it on for them, right? It's bad enough that it happened in the first place, but now they have all of these other things that they have to deal with on top of that.
Well said. Well said. No, Lonnie, thank you so much. We usually go just about under an hour. Really appreciate you coming on because it's not a light subject and it's not easy for just anybody. I was pretty hesitant about recording this, and Highland's super passionate, so I think it was Highland, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a little bit easier for Highland to be able to talk politically and go into these really deep conversations, or as like I don't want to always go and like I don't want to go and pierce the veil or anything.
Yeah, I
Shout
get
out to the band, but no, thank you so much for coming on. I love the shit out of you. I respect the hell out of you, and yeah, I think this podcast is gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. Is there anything you would like to? We'll obviously plug you down in the description, but is there anything you want to plug like right now?
Like
Social
your
medias,
Instagram
Twitch,
or
or
Oh, you guys didn't prepare me for this.
yeah, that's one thing we didn't actually. You're totally you're
yeah,
totally
yeah. You
right.
don't have to plug anything or any links or anything,
Well,
but
let me just briefly, can I just give a little description about myself, I guess?
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
okay, so I do have a Twitch. I don't actively use it, but there are clips and stuff you can see me like playing on there. That's gonna be Baylani and then an underscore on Twitch. I have a personal Instagram that's not private, so you guys can access that and be my friend if you'd like to. But after what I said today, I don't know if I'll have many friends. Maybe I'll have some trolls on me. That's going to be Noelani Gabrielle on Instagram. And then I also have my art, which I do and have actively been doing for a really long time. So that's Baylani Makes. That's on Instagram and also on Etsy.
fuck
That's it, I
yeah,
think. So I plugged all my plugs, but I don't actively use all of them.
no problem.
Yeah.
Cool, Highland.
All right, I guess I gotta roll us the fuck out of here, dude. I usually do
Roll it,
so
baby.
goofy shit, but I don't know if I can do goofy rollouts for
Wait,
this
I want to
one.
see.
All right, hit him with the goofy.
Oh, you want to hit it with the goofy? Okay, well, it's usually just like I sound like super tired and whatever, but thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are amazing. Hopefully, you watched all the way through so you can get the perspective of Noelani's perspective and opinions. And it was great to have her on. It was great to hear her opinion. We're just a bunch of fucking dudes. What do we know about carrying a child? So hopefully, you listened all the way through. If you don't agree with what we have to say it in the comments. Be respectful about it. We'll be respectful about it. Let's have a good fucking conversation. Turn on the fucking noti bell. Hit subscribe. Like the video. We love you guys. You guys are toads. Mwah.
Mwah.